Yep, it's recording.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, and good evening. Tuesday night, election night, November the 6th. And we are very happy to have Rod Funderburk here to share with us about the Rotary CART program. I would like to give a few lines about Rod's experience and introduce him to our group. So Rod Funderburk is out of South Carolina. He graduated from the University of South Carolina with a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering. He served in the Navy. He worked at Allied Chemical, Allied Signal, and International in varying capacities. Rod is a charter member of the Rotary Club of Lake Murray Irmo, which was begun in 1989. He served as president in 91, 92. He was honored as a Club Rotarian of the Year, both in 2007 and 2010. He served on the district website committee, on the district training committee as an assistant governor, and as District 7770 governor in 2015 and 2016. Rod is a foundation major donor and Paul Harris Society member. And so with that, we'd like to say thank you, Rod, for coming. And we are looking forward to hearing what you have to say about our CART program.
Thank you, Rhonda. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you folks. We're going to chat a little bit about Alzheimer's and the CART Fund. And the first question for all of you is, would you volunteer to have the Alzheimer's disease? And I don't expect you to raise your hand, but I want you to just think about the question. I've done this a number of times with live audiences, and I've never had anybody raise their hand. However, if you've been associated with the military, you know that sometimes when people ask for volunteers and then nobody raises their hand, somebody goes back and creates a list, and you become what we used to call volunteers. Alzheimer's works like that. It's not respecter of geography. It's not a respecter of economic. It's not a respecter of a whole bunch of things. It's just one of those things that you get sometimes, and it's a horrible disease. Nobody wants it. If you're a male, 1 in 11 males can expect to have Alzheimer's in their lifetime. And if you're a female, it's 1 in 6. If you're a female with Alzheimer's, it acts very aggressively, and you develop symptoms more rapidly than the men. So it's one of those things that nobody wants, whether you're male or female. It's not limited to older folks, although it is considered to be an old person's disease. It worsens with time, and there's no current cure. And therein lies one of the things that we want to chat about today, is there's no cure for Alzheimer's. It's the 6th leading cause of death in the U.S. The top 5 all have either preventative measures or cures, but Alzheimer's does not. In fact, of the top 10 leading causes of death, all 10 within Alzheimer's have cures and prevention. It's very progressive with age. We know that it has to track folks as early as 40s, but as you progress in age, your chances of attracting Alzheimer's become greater. It affects memory and language and comprehension, and as it progresses, it also affects your balance, your swallowing, and sometimes leads to death. 5.4 million people in the U.S. have Alzheimer's as of the end of 2016. 500,000 are diagnosed every year in the U.S. And you can see from the slide how much money it costs and what Medicare and Medicaid put into spending it for it. Let me talk a little bit about the CART Fund. In 1995, a fellow named Roger Ackerman and his wife Deanie buried her mother. They had previously spent 10 years as her caregiver while she suffered from Alzheimer's. While they were the caregiver, Roger looked for a cure for Alzheimer's and could not find one. He looked for people who were researching to find cures for Alzheimer's and couldn't find very many. The startling revelation he came across was at that point in 1995, we spent only 3 cents of every dollar in research funding on Alzheimer's. So he came up with an idea and presented the idea to his club. Now, since you're Rotarians, you know how ideas work. You bring the idea to your club board and you hope they vote for it. Sometimes they vote against it. Sometimes when they vote for it, they say, by the way, can you be the chair? Well, Roger's idea was that we asked all the Rotarians in his club to come to lunch on Mondays and empty the change out of their pockets. Have the club, which is the Rotary Club of Sumter, South Carolina, to accumulate the change. When enough was accumulated, to give that money away in the form of a grant for research to find a cure for Alzheimer's. CART is an unusual acronym, but that's what they came up with back then. The C is for the coins. They asked the people to take out of their pockets. Today, we collect money, checks, credit cards, property, stocks, whatever you want to donate. The AR is for Alzheimer's research. That is the only thing that CART focuses on. We don't compete with other folks because that's all we do is put money into research to find a cure for Alzheimer's. The T is for trust. It's a 501(c), but more importantly, you can trust the CART Fund to put 100% of the money you donate into research. And a lot of folks say, well, how in the world can you put 100% of the money donated into research? Well, we collect the money throughout the year. The CART Fund year runs from May the 1st to April 30th. The money is collected throughout the year and invested. Return on investment covers the administration costs. We give the money away the second week of May. The administration costs are very small. There are no salaries. Everybody with the CART Fund is a volunteer. There's no travel expenses. The only expenses related to the CART Fund are website maintenance, printing costs, and banking fees. And so consequently, administrative costs are extremely small. The blue bucket on your screen represents the bucket that's passed around for the clubs that have physical locations. So they can put money in the bucket and collect, and then the club treasurer forwards that money to the CART Fund. The sole purpose of the CART Fund is to find a cure for Alzheimer's. And some of you are at the end of this program are going to tell me about cures you've read about, and so let's hold those thoughts until the end, and I'll try to address that at that point. We said a while ago there were 5.3 million Alzheimer's patients in the U.S. as of the end of 2016. Every one of those patients has either a family member or a caregiver, and the Alzheimer's disease affects families and caregivers tremendously. In fact, it is not something that anybody wants to go through, and we need to find a cure so that no family has to go through this disease. Let me tell you a story. I had a friend his name was Joe Bearden, and he worked for me actually for 5 years before he retired at age 65. He was a brilliant engineer. I learned a great deal from him early in my career. Before he came to work for me, he built industrial plants all over the world. Very organized person. At age 70, he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. At 77, we attended his funeral. He had a very aggressive form of Alzheimer's. The last 3.5 years of his existence on Earth, he did not know anyone. He couldn't communicate with his wife, couldn't communicate with his 2 lovely daughters. He couldn't do anything that he previously enjoyed. He basically was in a shell. if you talk to his daughters today, they will tell you that 3.5 years was the worst time of their lives because Dad was still on Earth, but Dad couldn't communicate. We want to find a cure for Alzheimer's so families don't have to go through that ever again. If you are a researcher and you do medical research, there are 3 buckets that you can go find money for. The NIH, which is National Institute of Health, pharmaceutical companies, and the government. That's the 3 entities that have money that can give you to help your research. Unfortunately, in all 3 cases, they fund research that they consider to be successful research. In other words, if you've already proven your hypothesis, they'll give you money to further the research, but they won't give you money unless you've proven your hypothesis. The screen shows you what NIH puts their money in, and you'll see that Alzheimer's is a very small amount. So the CART Fund was created to provide seed money. We believe that the cure for Alzheimer's is going to come from an out-of-the-box thinker, somebody who's not on the same path that everybody else is, somebody who has an idea that just needs to have some funding to prove that it's a good idea. So the CART Fund provides seed money in hopes that that seed money will allow the researcher to prove their hypothesis, and then they can go get some additional funding from one of these large entities. As I told you a while ago, the CART Fund was begun in 1995 with the Rotary Club of Sumter. It was immediately adopted by the District 7770, and that one club has now expanded to 1,100. In 1999, they gave their first grant of $100,000 to Dr. Alan Levy, Emory University. From 1999 until present, we've given 45 grants, $7.4 million. The bylaws require us to give no more than $250,000 to a researcher, and so we provide our grants from $50,000 to $250,000. We give grants away the second week of May every year. And last year we gave $700,000. The year before that, $700,000. Our goal for this year is $1 million. And we believe we can do that. The next couple of slides are simply people who have gotten grants from us and then parlayed that into additional money from the National Institute of Health and others. And then I have a group of people who were the recipients this past May. While their pictures are on the screen, let me tell you how the process works. We have 3 renowned researchers who have volunteered to be our committee, one of which is Dr. Alan Levy, who received the first grant. These 3 folks receive in the fall anywhere from 80 to 100 applications. These are researchers who are looking for money to prove their idea. This committee of 3 wades through all those applications and narrows it to about somewhere between a dozen and 20. And they go back to those and ask for additional information. It could be in the form of a letter to verify what they've said in the application. It could be additional data. It could even be a Skype conference call to truly understand what it is the idea is, what the idea is all about. In late February, early March, those 3 gentlemen will meet with our funding committee, typically by conference call. The reason being that of the 3 researchers, one's in Atlanta, one's in Hong Kong, and one's in New York. Travel is not an option because we want to limit any kind of expense that's associated with this. Between the 3 researchers and the funding committee, they will rank the applications and determine which applications will get how much money. And those folks are invited to one of 2 meetings in May. One is in Columbia, South Carolina, and one is in Orlando, Florida. Typically, we give 3 of the grants in Columbia and 2 in Orlando. If we give 6 in a given year, it's 3 and 3. The idea is that Florida has recently joined the family of CART givers, and we want to make sure that they understand they're important to us. And so we divided the meetings into one in in South Carolina and one in Florida. The next two slides are some folks that also got grants in 2018. There were a total of 5 grant recipients. We're looking for a cure for Alzheimer's. We're looking for a way to either retard the disease or cure it completely. Like I said before, of the top 10 causes of death, Alzheimer's is the only one that cannot be prevented, cured, or slowed down. We indicated a while ago that perhaps you might think that there's a cure on the market. Every week I see an ad in the paper or in one of the magazines that I take where somebody's going to sell me a pill that will either cure Alzheimer's outright or it will improve my cognitive dysfunction, which essentially is another way of putting it'll cure your Alzheimer's. Unfortunately, none of these pills have gone through any kind of market research or medical research or clinical trials. In fact, most of them will tell you up front that they have not been through trials. But if you buy this wonder drug, it will cure your problem. There's a medical doctor in California who has claims to have done 30 years of Alzheimer's research. And he's actually written a book about his research. And he spends an entire chapter telling you why he did not do the clinical trial. Until a clinical trial is done, it is hard to put faith in any of these magic cures. One of the other reasons we claim that there is no cure and believe there is no cure is because the research we've done with Alzheimer's indicates there are at least 3 types of Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's will attack the body in at least 3 different ways. Because of that, we believe that one size will not fit all in terms of cure. Even if one of these magic pills is a cure for one of the 3, we don't have a cure for everything. And CART will be around until we find a cure for every type of Alzheimer's, until we find a cure so that no family has to go through caring for an Alzheimer's. CART was begun by Rotarians. It is sustained by Rotarians, but it is not completely funded by Rotarians. At this point, about 20% of our funds come from non-Rotarians and non-Rotary Club. The other 80 comes from Rotary Club. We are continually expanding our marketing so that the CART fund can be expanded to non-Rotarian kind of groups. But it's up to the people who are passionate about finding a cure to fund it. The idea is we would like for you to help us find a cure. As the slogan behind me says, it's all up to you. CART fund is about finding people who are passionate about the idea and having them provide funds so that we can find a cure. The CART fund website is on the screen, and we ask you to go to the website and donate. You can write a check to the post office box on the screen, or you can go to the website and it will indicate lots and lots of ways. In fact, the website will allow you to donate electronically. The little blue bucket on the screen is just to remind us that Rotarians can make a difference, and each of you can as well. And at this point, I'm entertaining any kind of questions you might have.
Thank you so much, Rod. That was very comprehensive and actually learned a lot. I'm sure we have lots of questions. I'd like to open up to everyone to ask Rod more about Alzheimer's or about CART.
This is Shireen. I have a question. Our club doesn't have the blue bucket. How do we get one of the Alzheimer blue bucket cards?
If you would like a blue bucket or multiple blue buckets, if you will give me an address to send it to, I'll ship them to you.
That would be great. Thank you. I'll write the address on the chat.
Okay.
Thank you.
Rod, this is Rich Jaworski. I know you're targeting Alzheimer's specifically, and forgive me if I'm wrong about this. This is what I think I know, that Alzheimer's is a type of dementia, a specific type of dementia. Is that pretty much correct? Because I'm wondering what you do for dementia as a general group of, I think, separate diseases. Do you also include research for dementia that is not Alzheimer's?
Rich, that was a number of questions. Let me see if I can answer them, and I may or may not miss one. First off, Alzheimer's is in fact a type of dementia. The research we are funding may end up with a cure for dementia as well as Alzheimer's. At this point, there's not enough known to segregate the two into two different buckets. We know that Alzheimer's is much more difficult on the patient. Alzheimer's is much more progressive than regular dementia. But as we learn more about how the brain works and how Alzheimer's attacks the brain, there is knowledge to be gained for both dementia and Alzheimer's. Now, we'll have to wait and see how the research turns out, but we are certainly hopeful that we can find something that will help lots of folks.
Okay, thank you. Could you go back to the screen that shows the address for donations, if you still have control of it there?
The address, yes, sir.
That's it.
And if you're writing a check, if you could make it out to the CART fund, it'd be nice.
We'll update. We'll take this information also and send it out. If we can send the slides or at least the contact information, we'll send it out to everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Rod?
Well, the results of any of the projects that were attempted so far, has there been any light at all at the end of the tunnel? I know you had no great breakthroughs necessarily, but are you satisfied so far with the results of some of the research?
We are definitely satisfied with some of the research. We have, as I indicated, we've given 45 grants. 28 of those have gone on to get additional money from NIH or the pharmaceutical company. So we believe that verifies the fact that we're providing good seed money. We recognize that not 100% is going to work because these are out of the box ideas. We're learning a great deal about Alzheimer's and how it affects the brain. What was assumed to be the logical path in, say, 15 years ago, when we were 4 or 5 years into this opportunity, has proven to be an incorrect assumption. And so we're learning a great deal about the brain in terms of what is and is not the right kind of assumption in terms of how Alzheimer's attacks the brain. I believe because of that, we are closer than we were. And I believe that it will require a great deal of effort on the part of the researchers to truly get us to a cure. But I believe we will get there.
Rod, I have a question. Are we only able to deal with U.S.-based researchers, or do you have any international? And if so, any international, where are a lot of them located?
Because of the fact that all of our donations come from the U.S., we currently limit the researchers to the U.S.-based researchers.
Okay.
Essentially, what we do is we send an invitation letter to all the research facilities that we are aware of within the U.S., inviting them to participate. from those invitation letters, which are in the hundreds, we get between 80 and 100 applications. But they're all U.S. based at this point.
It's good to know you have over 100 applicants. That's impressive, because I was wondering that too. How often are people applying? Do you have a sufficient amount to look through each year? So that's great.
We have more than sufficient to look through, but we would entertain 200 if we could, because we're looking for that one nugget that will get us to the right answer.
Anyone else have a question?
Rhonda, if your group wants to send me questions by email, that would be great afterwards. And at this point, I'll let you continue with your meeting.
Okay, thank you so much again for your time. This was very interesting. I know we're focused a lot on polio, but I believe that now understanding more about the CART program helps us, again, as we've said, that we are, as a club, responsible to host an Alzheimer's luncheon in February of 2019. And so this helps set the foundation, I believe, those of us that may not have known quite, the history about Alzheimer's and Rotary. So thank you so much for that.
You're very welcome.
I will here our thank you. Share my screen. I'm now taking it from you, Rod, and I'm sharing my screen. I hope that everyone can see. Again, we thank you for being an inspiration for us, Rod, with your work that you're doing with CART. And with that, we're saying that this is a certificate of appreciation to Rod Funderburk for imparting valuable insights and inspiration as our guest speaker tonight. So with that, I'd like to have a volunteer to say our four-way test. Anyone volunteering?
Yeah, I can do it.
Great, MG, thank you.
Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you.
Thank you, MG. And thank you all. Have a good night, and we will watch the voting, I guess, from this point on. You're free to stick around if you have any other questions or want to talk about anything, because we kind of ended early. We usually go to 9 o'clock. So, but we do recognize it's a voting night. So, election night. So we want everybody to have an opportunity to see the results. So have a good night, everyone. Thank you. Baby, I want to say, what is your first name? Is Mike, right? Or Mark?
That's Matt.
Matt. You want to start with an M. Sorry about that.
You were close. You were close. No, it's all good.
Good to have you with us. Thank you so much.
Rhonda?
Thank you.
Yes.
Rhonda, hi.